Now for the Praxis Core, the first essay you'll get is the Argumentative Essay. And this is the little graphic in our Praxis Core book that I like to use. Let me switch my color to a darker color because I'll be drawing on white. So in the Argumentative Essay, you have 2 graders initially. The first grader is going to be a human being. The human being is going to read your essay and give you a score from 1 to 6. We'll talk about, how you get an adequate score in just a second. The other person or non-person who's reading your essay is going to be a computer, okay? The computer is basically, for the Argumentative Essay, it's programmed. I don't know. I'm not ETS. We don't know what program they use to grade the essay. But with the human grader and the computer grader, it's supposed to reduce bias. And to be honest, testing companies use computers because it's cheaper to grade things. You got to pay humans to grade essays. You don't have to pay a computer. So if these 2 resources, if the human and the computer agree within 1 point, your essay is scored and that's it. So if the human grader gives you a 4 and the ETS computer gives you a 3, they've agreed within 1 point. So you got a 4 and a 3 from these 2 graders, okay? Now they combine the scores and use a scale score, and it's really complicated. It's a little different from the GK FTCE, but just know that these scores will be combined with your multiple choice to give you an overall writing score, okay? Again, we're not talking about the multiple choice today. We're just talking about the writing. Now, let's say that the human gave you a 4 and the computer gave you a 2. Well, then they did not agree within 1 point. And so they bring in another human grader here, and that person is the tiebreaker, okay? So that's how it works with that's how it works with the Argumentative Essay. With the source-based essay, we'll go over that in a minute, it's 2 humans, okay? It's 2 human beings grading your essay. So it's important to understand that. Now, I don't know how efficient the computer is on grading it. I'm sure that they've invested a lot of resources and time into their computer graders. You just kind of got to go with it and make sure that you write the best essay you possibly can so that you can get the scores you need to pass the writing exam, okay? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Now, what we want to shoot for is a 4. And this is similar to the FTCE general knowledge essay. You want to shoot for competence. Now, because we're trying to bank points and because we're trying to, get as many points as we possibly can combined with the multiple choice, we want to make sure that we are trying to get as good of a score as we possibly can. But a score of a 4 is considered competent. So that is, the rubric that I want to focus on today. Remember, we're not trying to write the next great American author. We're not trying to compete with other authors and be a Pulitzer Prize winning author. We just need to pass the test and move on with our lives. So to be competent in this area, in the rubric, it states that you have stated or implied your position or thesis. Your thesis has to be cleared. And in fact, I don't even want you to imply it. I want you to state it very, very, very clearly. I want you to put yourself in the position of the test makers, the test graders, right? It's really, really difficult to sometimes find your student's thesis statement, find your student's support for the thesis. I'm saying this because I was an English teacher. And when I was an English teacher, you got to go around the world to find out what the kid is trying to say, when really you just want the student to be as direct as possible, right? So, you're going to want to state your thesis as clearly and directly. Do not even imply it, state it. And I'm going to show you how to do that when we get into the formula. Also in the rubric, it shows control in the organization. That means you're not all over the place. You're focused. You have definitive paragraphs that describe certain things, and you are not out in la la land trying to piece together, abstract concepts. It's very clear, concise, and you have control, okay? Offer some key ideas and details. Those are the examples, and they are key. You have to use things like, for example, and, for example, in addition, such as. those words are going to trigger the reader to know that you are going to give a specific detail. We'll talk more in depth about that when we actually write the essay, and I am going to write an essay with you today. But we want to make sure that it's not just abstractions out there, like, oh, technology in the classroom is important. It's important because students like it, and teachers can use it to better their instruction. All that is abstraction. Give me tangible details, and I'm going to show you what those look like in a second, okay? Then the next bullet is displays adequate use of language. That is your grammar. Now, I know a lot of instructors out there say, don't worry too much about your grammar. It's not about your grammar. But your adequate use of language is your grammar. Watch it, because if I'm grading your essay and you have bad grammar, I'm going to be distracted by it. And you never know who's grading your essay. It could be, a high school English teacher. It probably is a high school or middle school English teacher. And he or she may be a stickler on certain things. Remember, this is graded by a human, so it is subjective for sure. They try very hard to remove the bias. They try very hard to make it as equitable and fair as possible. However, there have been numerous studies about essay exams, and it shows that implicit and explicit bias are certainly present when we're grading these exams. So take out as much bad things in your essays as you can. Make it clear, concise, and good grammar. It does matter. Good grammar matters, 100%. And we will be doing further webinars in the next couple of weeks to help you with that. And I also have a ton of grammar videos on our YouTube channel that will make you a grammar expert in no time. So don't worry about that. And then we have shows control of grammar usage and mechanics, but may contain some errors. You can have some errors and still get competence, still receive your competence grade. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is a 30-minute essay for argumentative, and you don't have spell check and you don't have grammar check. So they know that you're going to make one or two mistakes. But if it's riddled with grammar problems, it's going to be an issue. And then also this adequate use of language here, that also includes sentence variety, so that your essay kind of has a flow to it. It's not robotic. You're using different words and things like that. And it helps, the reader to enjoy the process of reading your essay. Okay. All right. So let's move forward and go through the steps. We have helped thousands and thousands of people pass their writing assessments. So when I tell you this formula works, I am being totally sincere with you. Okay. Now, you are going to write this essay out of order. All right. You're writing out of order. Good writers write out of order. They don't start from once upon a time, the beginning of the story, and then they go all the way to the end without ever moving things around or changing things. For this essay task, it's going to help you a lot to write out of order. You're going to do certain things first. And this goes for the general knowledge exam as well. This goes for the Praxis Core Argumentative, and it goes for the general knowledge essay. So we always write out of order. I'm a writer. I'm telling you, writers write out of order. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do, which is probably the most important thing, is to type your thesis statement. You need to take a position. We'll talk about it when we see the prompt a little bit more, but you need to have a definitive thesis statement. Okay. Because it's very, very, very important that the reader knows exactly what you're trying to say. You do not want it to be a scavenger hunt for your thesis statement. I'm going to give you definitive examples in a minute. Then you're going to map your essay. This is where you use your notepad very quickly to jot down ideas and keep yourself organized. Now, I know this takes time, but this small preparation detail on the front end is going to save you a ton of time at the end. If you try to just write, you're going to have problems. And I don't mean map your essay where you write like all these different things, and it's like a thesis, or it's like a, midterm analysis or a dissertation, right? But you have to at least do some bulleted points, and I will model that for you, okay? Then you're going to write the detail paragraphs. You have not written your intro yet. You've only mapped your essay. Then you're going to go straight to the details. Detail paragraphs are easier to write because they're more specific. You've already mapped your details because the map contains what you're going to talk about. So you already have your details and you're going to put those down on paper. The bulk of your essay is graded on the details paragraphs. People rarely fail this test because of the intro or the conclusion. Usually the problems happen in the body paragraphs, okay? So we want to make sure you start with the body paragraphs so you can get all those down, and we want to proof them really, really well. And that brings me to step 4. Proof your body paragraphs before you go on to write your intro and conclusion. Why? Because the bulk of the essay comes from, or the bulk of the grade comes from the essay portion or from the details portion. So you want to make sure those 2 detail paragraphs or 1 detail paragraph is nice and tight, no grammatical errors, your spelling is good, and it's, well written and all of that. Then once you've done that, then you're going to write the intro and then you're going to write the conclusion. Now your intro and conclusion are going to feel repetitive because you're writing them out of order. You're actually writing them, you're writing the intro, then you're writing the conclusion. But when you pop those body paragraphs in between, it will not read in a redundant manner. It will not read repetitively. It will read in a nice way because you'll have your intro at the top, then you'll have your body paragraphs, then you'll have your conclusion at the bottom. And even though your intro and your conclusion say kind of very similar things, it's going to be broken up with the details in the middle, and you'll be able to, break up that monotony. All right. And then the final step, hopefully you have time to do it, is to proofread your entire essay to make sure you haven't missed anything. This is not the time to add any new details. I see this a lot. In the conclusion, you decide, oh, I forgot this one thing. Let me go ahead and add it. No, you're already in the conclusion. We're not adding anything. Okay. So make sure you're good to go there. All right. So let's move to the argumentative essay prompt. Now, if you're a general knowledge person and you're not a Praxis person, you should still practice this. This will help you with your writing. So it will definitely help you. So just, there's 2 more prompts that you can use when you're working towards your essay. All right, so you will most likely get a prompt for the argumentative essay on the Praxis exam that is very opinionated. Let's take a look at this one. The use of technological devices in classrooms should be banned. It should say in classrooms, should be banned because students are distracted and spend the majority of their time on social media. Now, you guys are all educators, most of you anyways, and you know that this is a pretty direct statement. It's missing some nuances and things like that, and it's not giving you the whole story, and it's certainly taking a very definitive position without talking much about some of the other things. But this is how it's going to be presented. You're going to be given an argument, a very argumentative prompt that's going to be very opinionated. And so it's going to be easy for you to take a position. Now, of course, I'm going to take the position that I disagree. So that's what I want you to do when you go in on test day. You read this prompt and you say, I disagree. Now, as teachers, you probably agree and disagree. You probably want technological devices banned when you're up giving a presentation or when you need students to have eyes on you and to look at you and to not be on their device, right? 100%. But for this task, you need to take a definitive position. Do not be wishy-washy. Well, I kind of agree with this and I kind of agree with that. The reason being is that it's going to be very difficult for you to write if you've taken 2 positions. So you need to take a position. Now, here is the piece that the test gives you. So you have the argumentative prompt, and then you have discuss the extent to which you agree or disagree with this opinion. All right. So discuss the extent which you agree or disagree. And then we have this: support your views with specific reasons and opinions for your own experience, from your own experiences. Now, here's the key. Normally, I tell people to write in third person. I tell people who are doing essay exams to avoid first person narrative. The difference, first person narrative, just in case you don't know, is I, me, we, okay? Third person narrative is them, they, them, he, she, okay? That's third person. Normally, when we write, especially academically, we want to stick to third person. It just helps it to be more scholarly. However, on the Praxis Core, in their study companion, they use first person narrative. So because they have modeled that and shown that that's how you get a good grade, I'm going to do that for this particular, just this argumentative prompt. But for most essays, I tell you to avoid first person narrative. Now, one narrative that you should avoid for sure is second person, and that is you. When we explain things like, you can use technology in the classroom to engage students. The problem with that is when you use you shift your perspective, you shift your narrative, and it's usually dinged as a grammar issue, as a language issue. Because we're going to be using first person, we want to make sure we're using first person throughout the entire essay. All right, so we want to just say no to second person narrative. And when we proof our argumentative essays or your general knowledge essay, you want to proof for the terms you and your. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes when we explain things, we use the you. If you're explaining to your friend, you say, yeah, it's great. You can do this and you can do that. And I really like this because you can do this. The problem is that doesn't translate in a scholarly article or a scholarly piece of work. So avoid you at all costs and proofread for it. If you see it, take it out. All right, so we have our argumentative prompt right here. The use of technological devices should be banned. A very definitive position that this person has taken, and we have decided to disagree. All right. I think for this, even if you're one of those people who don't like cell phones in the classroom, and I get it, I was a teacher, I understand. I think that you're going to find more examples about how to use them more in an engaging way. And you're going to be able to use those examples a little bit better than you would if you agreed with this prompt. But if you agree with this prompt and you can write to it, do it. My thing is choose the position that you can write to best because you only have 30 minutes, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I've defined my position. I disagree. They should not be banned. And my thesis statement, I am going to make my thesis statement. This is the first thing I do, is going to be technological devices should not be banned in the classroom because they offer many advantages. It is and we could even take out many. We could just say offer advantages. If we say many, sometimes we run into the problem of having to list many. And if we're only in 30 minutes, we only have 30 minutes, we're going to maybe want to take out many and just say advantages, because then you could list like 2 and that's totally fine. Okay. So I've got my thesis statement. The thesis statement will eventually be the last sentence of my first paragraph. Now, some people do this differently. In fact, it even looks differently in the Praxis Study Companion. However, if I'm grading your essay and I'm reading it and you want to make life easy on me, I'm going to see your first paragraph and boom, your thesis statement's going to be the last sentence of the first paragraph. And then you're going to move into your details. And right then I'm going to be able to locate your position, which is one of the things that you have to do for this essay. And I'm also going to be able to understand exactly where you're coming from and it's thoroughly stated. Make it easy on the reader. Think like a test maker, not a test taker. Okay, so I've got my thesis statement. I'm going to kind of stay away from many. I'm going to just say advantages so that I don't, ruin my day by having to list 100 million advantages. And now I'm going to go into my detailed paragraphs here. So the way I map my argumentative essay for the Praxis Core is that the first detailed paragraph is going to be mainly about what are the advantages. Okay, I'm just going to talk about the advantages. So let me just list them really quickly. And I would do this very quickly if I were testing. The first advantage is going to be they offer, engagement. Students are engaged when they're on their devices. They offer, differentiated instruction. Again, I apologize for my sloppy handwriting. I'm working on it. Differentiated instruction. I might just, abbreviate that. Also, they can be used for cooperative or collaborative learning. Okay, right there. I could make 3 or 4 to 5 sentences out of just those things. Now, remember, we're going to need specific details, but this will kind of help us to organize. With engagement, let's think of a specific detail there. Let's see. Phones can be used for polling. Don't students use the phones to poll? You can do a classroom poll. So we can do polling. Also, for differentiated instruction, we could talk about students could use their devices to, look things up rather than in a book. They could use them for the internet or something like that. Internet. And with collaborative learning, students can use their devices to, let's just say, and I may not use all of these in my essay, but collaborative learning, they might be able to do, with their laptops, they could do writing. They could write together, using Google Docs or something like that, okay? Now, I may not use all of those. I may get started and I may decide that I don't need the collaborative learning piece and that engagement and differentiated instruction is just fine. You don't have to use all of these. These are just ideas to get on paper so that you can pull from them and use them in your essay. Now, the second detail paragraph, I like to make this my personal experience, okay? Because it does say in the directions to use personal experience. So I might say something like, I remember I was in college and my college professor used tech. Now, this is good because it's a specific example, like I'm giving you an actual personal detail. So that hits that details piece in the rubric. So my professor used tech, and I remember that some students who normally wouldn't participate did participate when tech was used. They wouldn't raise their hand to speak, out in front of the class because they were shy, but they did use tech. So I'm just going to put shy students participated. And that goes along with the differentiated instruction and engagement. I'll just hit that there. Notice I am quick. We're not writing a dissertation on this map. We are just simply just kind of putting some things down so we can map our essay and figure that out, okay? All right, now that I've mapped, I'm going to type my details paragraph. Now, just a quick thing about this presentation today. This has a lot of text on it, and I know that. But the nature of this presentation has to, because I'm teaching you how to write an essay. But I'm going to show you, this is a big details paragraph because I wanted to show you all the things. But you can essentially cut this details paragraph in half and still get the grade that you need to get. Okay, still get the points. So let me just go through this. Contrary to the belief that using technological devices in the classroom is distracting to students, there are many advantages to using these devices. I might just say there are advantages. Many advantages, again, lock me in, but that's okay. If it's many advantages, that's fine. The use of technology in the classroom can foster student collaboration. Didn't I say that? Didn't I say that in my map? Collaborative learning, okay? Can foster collaboration, blah, blah, blah. Then I have here, for instance, here comes my specific detail. I didn't just say, oh, it fosters collaboration. Collaboration is abstract. That's telling me something. I need you to show me, what does collaboration look like? Well, I'm going to show you. For instance, students can collaborate to create a podcast. That's specific, using a variety of cloud-based tools. I could have also said they can collaborate on Google Docs and writing. Anything like that. In addition, using technological devices in the classroom can increase student engagement. Another piece in my map, okay? For example, here comes my specific example again. Students can use their laptops or iPads to create infographics that explain complex ideas. Perfect. Infographics, I can see that. I know what that looks like. These activities allow students to be creative and use their critical thinking skills. Well, those are the good words, right? I always talk about good words in education, and creativity and critical thinking skills are the things that we want to increase in our students. The use of technological devices in the classroom can drive both collaborative learning and student engagement, ultimately providing students with new ways to interact with each other and the classroom content. Great. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, oh my God, how did she come up with all of this? Well, the first thing I did was I mapped my essay and I stayed focused. And all I did was take my map, I turned it into classroom can foster collaboration. There's my collaboration. Then I have a specific detail. So I have my overarching, then specific detail. Then I have my other overarching statement, then my specific detail. So let me just use a different color here. I'm going to use yellow. So for my overarching details were collaboration and engagement right here. And my purple is cloud-based tools, podcast, use their laptops and iPads for infographics, increasing critical thinking. So we have the two overarching details, and then we have that specific details underneath. Now, I could have taken off engagement completely. I could have done this, and bear with me here. Contrary to the belief, yada, 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 the use of technology in the classroom can foster student collaboration by allowing students to share work. For instance, students can collaborate to create a podcast using a variety of cloud-based tools. You could also say students could also use Google Docs to collaborate on writing assignments. And then you could jump right down to the use of technological devices enhances collaboration in the classroom. And keep it as simple as that. I just give you a few things to use here, but you could essentially take a piece of this out and just do collaboration and still be okay. All right. Remember, we're not trying to prove anything here. We're just trying to pass. Okay. Now we have the second details paragraph. Remember, that was my personal experience. And then we say here, in college, I was fortunate enough to have a professor who incorporated the use of technological devices in almost every lesson. So I'm taking my position again, why they should not be banned, because I was fortunate enough to have a professor who used it. Then we have, she encouraged us to use our laptops and cell phones in class for various activities. Various activities is not specific enough. I'm going to need to dig down a little deeper and get those specific details. And I do. Let me go back to my little coding system here. So we have technological devices. She encouraged us to use our laptops and cell phones for various activities. Okay, that's going to be your general. And then we get into specific. We frequently used our smartphones for online polling and crowdsourcing. Now we're getting specific. I can see students taking out their devices and typing in, what they agree with or what they don't agree with, or crowdsourcing. And then it said, which led to rich classroom discussion. Then I can visualize people discussing all the different things they're talking about using their smartphones. Okay. And this increased engagement. Even the shy students, remember I put that in my thing, and this would probably be considered a specific detail. Even the shy students who often did not take part in class activities participated. I can kind of visualize a kid or a college student who is like, I don't know if I want to participate. And then they are allowed to use their cell phones and they feel more comfortable doing that. So that's a good specific detail. And then we have, because the professor allowed us to use technology in the classroom, we were engaged. So that's going to be more of your general. We were engaged and able to collaborate with other classmates. So we went back out into general. Rather than viewing technology as a distraction, professors can take advantage of the resource and use it effectively in the classroom. Here's my little wrap-up sentence. I have two of them. I have it here, and then let's just go back to the first detail paragraph, and I have it here. The use of technological devices, it's right here, can drive both collaborative learning and student engagement. You could even put a period after student engagement and not do that. Ultimately providing students, you don't have to get all wordy. You could put a period there and move on with your life, okay? So that's how I would structure this. So we have the argumentative essay. Let's go back to our steps. We did our thesis. We disagree. It should not be banned. Technological devices should not be banned, okay? Then we mapped. We put our little details in there. Then we wrote our detailed body paragraphs, 2 of them. Now we need to proof our details. So I would go through and I would read this detail paragraph, making sure everything's cool. I might take out many advantages, right? I might take that out because I only listed one thing and one thing is not many. So take that out. Maybe, for example, I had something like where it said, for instance, instead of saying students can collaborate, maybe I said something like you can collaborate with your students. And as I was proofing, I saw that you, and I took it out and turned it into students instead of you. Okay, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. All right. So I proof all that. I proof all this. And now I have 2 awesome detailed paragraphs. They are rich with examples. They are grammatically correct. They have a flow and a focus. And I've only stuck to my thesis. I have not gone off into la la land and tried to talk about 100 other things. I've only talked about this particular thing. Don't go off. Don't go off. Stay right here. You guys stay right here with me, okay? So we proofed. We're good. Now we're going to write the intro. Sometimes the intro is really, really hard to do. So you're going to need to use the prompt. Now, on the exam and in the study companion, which is the document that Praxis uses to show what's on the test, it's the blueprint, it's the specifications, and I'll pull it up before the end of this webinar so you can take a look at it. They have examples that use first-person narrative. That's why I'm using it here, okay? So it says, I disagree with the ideas that the use of technological devices in the classroom should be banned. Right away, I took a position. I took the position. I disagree with the use of that they should be banned. These devices are innovative tools that can be used to positively affect student learning. All right, another little general statement. It's fine. This is the intro. It's supposed to be general. Then I have sentence 3. Technological devices should not be banned in the classroom because they offer many advantages. There is my thesis statement, okay? You may want to proof that really quickly. It's only 3 sentences. It's totally fine that it's only 3 sentences because it's just an intro. Your details should be longer. They should be like 5 sentences to 7, although there is no limit. There is no definitive word count. People ask me, how many words do I have to write? They don't state that. You have to clearly convey your position and using specific details with grammatically correct and a command of the language in order to pass this. They don't say it has to be 5 paragraphs. They don't say it has to be 2 paragraphs. It just has to cover what you're trying to cover. And then we write the conclusion, which is going to sound a lot like the intro. I do not agree with the claim that the use of technological devices in the classroom should be banned. Technological devices do not distract students. Rather, these devices can be used to encourage collaboration and improve student engagement. Notice that I talked about this in both my details paragraphs. Those were my things that I talked about in my details paragraph. Green is the connection from my detail paragraphs to my conclusion. Don't start being specific in the conclusion. Just restate a little bit of what you said. And then educators should embrace technology and use it as a resource to help students in their class succeed. Now, here's the ticket. This last part here is a call to action or a very definitive, kind of what you think teachers should do. And it says educators should embrace technology and use it as a resource to help their students. You're just now supporting your position and you're saying, teachers, you should do this. It's almost a call to action, but it certainly is definitely taking the position, okay? And then you're done. Now, my slides are all segmented out but you are going to write this, in your little area. But basically, you're going to type your thesis statement and then you're going to start typing your details. And when it's time to write your intro, just put your cursor up in front of your thesis and type your intro. And then when it's time to write your conclusion, just take your cursor all the way to the end and write your conclusion. Okay, so it's going to go intro, detail 1, detail 2, conclusion. All right. Now, the final step, if you have time, and hopefully you do, you're going to want to proof from top to bottom. Read it one time through. You may find a spelling error. You may find something you got to do, which is totally fine. But I think it's important that you proof one time through, even though you already proofed your details. Do not add anything. Please don't add anything. It could take you from a passing essay to a non-passing essay. Okay. So don't add anything. All right. So that's the steps to the argumentative.